Okay. We were just talking about, how your dad, you had so many good opportunities to taste older wines, but tell, what'd you learn from your dad and these wines?
Well, for me, the biggest thing that I learned is that getting to know a wine as it evolves over time is for me the most rewarding thing.
Yeah.
To get a chance to, in the same way that like friends who you've known for your whole life and you've gone through different things with them, and
Yeah.
you are a different person now than you were then, and so are they.
Yep.
And the fact that you have this shared history is really cool.
Yep.
Again, wines are alive, so the opportunity to follow them over time is a huge treat.
I agree. I think this wine is tasting so good, and it's young. It's an 18 vintage. We were just talking about how great the 18 vintage is. And I think it's one that, I hope to walk out of here with some bottles of this. Good boy. But I think that, we talked about both of these, Esprit and this. And then you've got so many good red wines, too, that are approachable when they're young. And tell us a little bit about that red wine part of the program.
Right, so we do 3 different tiers of our red blends like we do with our whites. So we have the Patalana Tablas, the Côte Tablas, and then the Esprit that we tried. Yeah. The Esprit is our flagship, modeled consciously after the Beaucastel red. Mourvedre dominant, our pick of the top 15% of what comes into the cellar. The Côte Tablas is that middle tier, still all off of our estate, still reserve level wine, but a more traditional look at the wines of the Southern Rhone. So mostly Grenache, Syrah is the number 2 grape, and then Mourvedre and Counoise. And then the Patalane wine is celebrating grapes that have really exceeded our expectations for them here in Paso. And in that case, on the red case, that's Syrah.
Yeah.
Which seems strange to think that we would be surprised by how good Syrah is.
Yeah.
But Syrah's a pretty minor grape in the Rhone, in the Southern Rhone.
Yeah.
In the Northern Rhone, it's king.
It's king.
In the Southern Rhone, it's color.
Yeah.
Basically. So when we planted our vineyard initially, we didn't plant that much Syrah because we thought that the climate here was very similar to the Southern Rhone. Mm-hmm. Instead, it's like this hybrid between the South and the North because the nights are so cold. So Syrah ends up being meaty and wild and dark and spicy, but it still has good dark fruit and it ages well. So we felt like when we wanted to create the Patalane that we wanted to celebrate that. So each of them has its own personality. We think it's really important that none of our wines just be a lesser version of something else that we do. But we also want them to occupy a different price range. We want to have wines that restaurants can pour by the glass.
Yep.
That's our main goal for the Patalane wines. Yep. We want people to be able to take a flyer on something on a shelf for $23.99. And they might not know us, they might not know the category, but we're going to be proud to introduce them to us and to the category with that wine. So we do those 3 different tiers of blends, and then we have, depending on the vintage, a handful of 100% varietal wines too.
Yeah. I've had some of the Patalane reds. What I really love it with is lamb and just kind of lamb sliders. Actually, to be really honest, I mean I love lamb sliders. I love lamb kebabs. Is when we're talking
about
lamb
in small pieces.
Yeah, well, but I mean, if we were gonna sit there and do a roasted lamb, I'd be going this way. So that's a little bit different. But I think just because that is a really nice selection of different things that you're stacking in there. Besides Syrah, you've got a lot of other varieties in that blend as well. So it really kind of matches up really good. Even if you got pickles in there or pickled vegetables on that plate, you can actually match up pretty nice with them too.
Yep.
So it's one of those wonderful things. And we were just talking a little bit about heirloom tomatoes in the last segment, and I mean having a nice BLT with heirloom tomatoes and that wine is a good one too, and I love that. I mean,
Sounds good to me.
I don't turn down many heirloom tomato BLTs. I really don't. And my son Rupert, he's starting to love BLTs, and he's getting into heirloom tomatoes too. So it's kind of fun to just share that with him as well. This is a culinary thing.
One of the world's perfect sandwiches.
Thing. Yeah, it really is. So I really appreciate you having me. It's always great to see you, Jason, and. Just where these wines are going. These are young wines, young red wines, but I want to really say one thing that's important here. I am here with Jason. We are on a special little patio here. There are a ton of people down here, you guys, and this is open for business. And Paso Robles is open for business. It's a great area. Like I said, and we were talking about, this was not affected by the fires. This was an area that was luckily was not in those zones, this vintage is going to be a great vintage down here.
Certainly hope so. Looks like it so far.
And I'm looking over here, and there's Neil and all the guys over there, you know, working on the fermentation process of what's going on. So we got to go talk to them about what's happening. But the fact is, it's a great destination to come. I love Paso Robles. I was here, obviously, judging the great competition with my special new mask on. And it's just always a pleasure to come down here. We will be back together obviously next year when the Hospice de Rhone event does happen. We had to have it canceled this year, but
Postponed.
Postponed. And we do love the great Vicky Carroll. For you, Vicky, that's a word for you. We love you, girl. And thank you once again for tuning in to the Varietal Show. And thanks for just bringing in all these fun varietals for everyone to be able to taste, Jason.
My pleasure. Thanks,
Cheers.
Chris.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Here,
Cheers.
here. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you on the next show. Boom. Cheers.